are good enough to go to the finals and bad enough to get their asses bounced in the first round. You don't know what you're going to get from them. Think about it. If the 7th and 8th seed truly ends up being Brooklyn or Toronto, Miami will face one of them. And both of those teams could beat Miami if they show up and Miami does not.
All right, let's take a look at the East standings as they are right now. We got the Nets at 8, Toronto at 7 by 3 games. Miami has the 1 seed by a game ahead of the defending champion Bucks, with the Sixers and the Celtics right on their heels. Big Perk back with us. Perk, what do you think? Should the Heat fear the Nets in a potential matchup of a 1 versus 8?
Well, I think anybody should fear the Nets, or be, have some concerns, but do I think the Nets could beat the Heat in the one? No. Listen, let me tell you something about the Miami Heat, okay? Yes, they're going through, a little rough patch right now, but that's why Eric Spoelstra wanted to ruffle the feathers with Jimmy Butler. For the simple fact that he knows that these last games of the regular season matters. And see, that's when it comes back to coaching. When you look at the Miami Heat, this is the first thing. When you look at the Miami Heat and you look at their starting 5, when you look at Bam, you look at Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, and P.J. Tucker, when you look at those guys, when you talk about having a defensive squad that could match up with anybody, those are those guys. And then you throw in Eric Spoelstra, a mastermind, one of the best, if not the best coach in the game today, in throwing those in-game adjustments. You don't know if he's in the 2-3 zone. You don't know if he's in the 1-2-2. You don't know what you're going to get out of Spoelstra. So when it comes down to game planning, along with personnel, along with a Tyler Hero coming in off the bench, who's, by the way, should win the Sixth Man of the Year award, I think we all agree. When it comes down to that, and the leadership in that locker room, see, Udonis Haslem and Jimmy Butler, okay, like they done dabbed it up. Udonis Haslem is the leader. He keeps everything in check. But when it comes down to the Miami Heat, them goons from Dade County, I think the Brooklyn Nets need to be the ones that's going to fear the Miami Heat more than the Heat should be fearing the Brooklyn Nets.
The only reason I disagree with you about that last part, KP, is because the Miami Heat, at least as presently constructed, are the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And when you go through what you go through for an entire season and then you end up losing in the first round, that's a bad look. And so I think it's one thing if you were a middle of the road, if you're a 4th or 5th seed and something like that happened. But when you're the number 1 seed in a conference, you don't want to be going home in the first round. There are expectations that come with that. And I think that Miami would be under some pressure to absolutely positively live up to it. Miami has beaten the Brooklyn Nets all 3 games they've played this season. Not one time have they faced both Kyrie and KD together. That has not happened. That changes this weekend, so we shall see. But it hasn't happened yet. And so as a result of that, I look at that tremendously so. And I'm telling you this, when you look at Brooklyn and what they bring to the table offensively, the reason why they put so much pressure on you is that on an off night, they're going to put up buckets. The point is, are you going to always put up buckets? We've seen Miami, and we know that Miami is capable of exploding against anybody. They can easily represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. I totally understand their potential. And quietly speaking, it would not bother me at all if that ended up happening. I just think that's important to point out there. Having said all of that, though, in the end, what it comes down to is this: what is going to be required of you in order to get there. And when I look at the Miami Heat, I'm not saying that Miami can't beat Brooklyn. I'm not saying Miami can't beat anybody. I'm saying against Brooklyn, you got to have all your ducks in a row. You can't have off nights. You can't be ill-prepared. And even though that leadership does matter with Kyle Lowry, P.J. Tucker, and all of that, I totally get that, totally understand it. The flip side to it is that when you've got veterans, it's not about KD's talent and Kyrie's talent, and it stops there. It's that they know when to do what they need to do. It's that when that counts. It's moments that matter. And sometimes when it gets tight, I've seen Miami, despite Hero's excellence and him being your sixth man of the year, because I completely disagree with you about that. Totally agree with you about that. Jimmy Butler's supposed to be the offensive option, number one option. Bam Adebayo, we know how athletically gifted he is and what he can bring to the table. But there are times when you look at the Miami Heat and you say, who's going to close for us? Who do we give the ball to and we say, take us there, damn it, get it done? There's a lot of nights where it doesn't seem to be that way for them. And against Brooklyn, particularly KD and Kyrie, that needs to be. I'm not saying you're wrong, KP. I know you could be right. I don't blame you for that. I'm simply saying, for me, I'm looking at how explosive Brooklyn is and what kind of pinch they're going to put you in. And I'm not sure that Miami doesn't have something to be worried about. I don't think anybody should want to face Brooklyn in the first round but Boston.
Well, look, I'm gonna say this to you. Listen. When I watched Kyrie and KD, Stephen A. again, I told you I wouldn't be surprised if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not dismissing that, but what I have concerns with, and I'm gonna give you this point right here. What I have concerns with is Steve Nash against Eric Spoelstra. That's a matchup in itself, and so when things escalated the other night on the Miami Heat bench, you know why it escalated? Because Jimmy Butler didn't contest the shot the right way.
Right.
See, when you have a coach that's willing to take it to that level because of a little thing like that, that matters. That matters. I just watched the Brooklyn Nets give up 140 points to the Memphis Grizzlies without Ja Morant, and I didn't see Steve Nash scream one bit about defense. See, that matters to me. And those are the little things that don't show up in the stat sheet. You know why Eric Spoelstra went crazy? Because Jimmy Butler didn't contest the shot? Because in the locker room, they say, go contest the shot to make them miss and not hope that they miss. You see what I'm saying? And the percentages drop down. See, that's the difference. Those are the little things that get you those championships that the average person can't see, or the guys that don't be in the locker room don't know about. And that's the concerns that I have when it comes down to Steve Nash.
Well, the concerns are valid, and I get where you're coming from. But we might be, dare I say, we might be being a bit premature when we look at the Miami Heat. They've lost 2 in a row. Milwaukee is now 1 game behind them for the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And both Philly and Boston are a game and a half behind them in the Eastern Conference. So Brooklyn, in all likelihood, is going to end up as an 8th or a 7th seed, because I'm looking at them right here, and they're 3 games back of the 6th seed. The likelihood is that they're going to end up as an 8th or a 7th seed, which means that the 1 or the 2 seed is going to end up going against them. It could be Miami, or it could be Milwaukee, or it could be Philly, or it could be Boston. Shove Boston aside, because with their defense collectively, they'll go against anybody. Philly with Harden, you want to meet Kyrie in the first round after all that happened this year? I'm not sure about that. Milwaukee.
I'm with you.
Milwaukee, you're the reigning, defending NBA champions. Do you want that matchup against KD in Brooklyn again in the first round, this time with a healthy Kyrie? I don't know about that. And then, of course, there's Miami. So it can get very interesting. I'm just saying.
It can. It can. But see, Stephen A., I'm like this when it comes down to the Eastern Conference. It's almost like boxing. Styles make fights, right? So when I look at the Philadelphia 76ers and I look at the Brooklyn Nets, I'm giving the edge to the Brooklyn Nets. But when I look at them going against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, I give the Milwaukee Bucks the edge over the Brooklyn Nets, because I feel like in some type of form or fashion, the way that Drew Holiday plays defense on the perimeter, he could neutralize Kyrie Irving. We saw what he did to Devin Booker and CP3 last year in the finals. When you talk about one of the best guard defenders in the NBA, that's Drew Holiday. So I think it all comes down to the style and the matchup when you talk about the Brooklyn Nets and who they want to face. I bet bet you they want to face the Philadelphia 76ers and not the Miami Heat or the Milwaukee Bucks.
Well, that's for different reasons other than basketball.
Burke, you have a wonderful.
You was something else.
He is. He is something.
That's why Brooklyn want Philly.
Something
That ain't about
special.
basketball.
Hey,
All right.
hey, we gotta go.